Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be tackling something I bet's on the mind of pretty much every entrepreneur listening. Startup funding. Specifically, we're diving into the early stages.
Yeah, absolutely. Those early stages are so critical. It's interesting what we found looking at all these different sources.
Yeah, tell me about that.
So many founders, they just immediately jump into like, I need to raise money, I need to raise
It's
money.
like step one for everyone, right?
Yeah, but our sources are kind of saying, hold on a second, raising money shouldn't be the first thing you're worried about.
That's so interesting because like you said, it feels like that's what everyone's focused on. It's like, I need to get funding to prove my idea is good.
Right, right. But it's really more about taking a step back and asking yourself, do I even need external funding right now?
Yeah,
You know, maybe bootstrapping, maybe crowdfunding even. Those could be better options depending on what you're doing.
makes a lot of sense. Choose the path that actually works for you instead of just doing what everyone else is doing.
Exactly.
Now, speaking of important choices early on, the sources also highlight how critical your company structure is. So, like, are we a sole proprietorship, partnership, LLP, private limited, public limited, all those different options.
Yeah, this is like this decision right here. It's foundational to, your whole funding journey. Think of it like if you're building a house, the structure that determines how stable the house is going to be.
Oh, I like that. Okay, so that makes sense. So you don't want to be building your startup on, sand.
Exactly, exactly. And it has an impact on who might want to invest in you too. Like a venture capitalist, they probably wouldn't touch a sole proprietorship, but a C corp, yeah, that's something they'd be interested in because of, the growth potential and all that.
So it's about aligning your structure with your goals, basically.
Yeah, yeah. You got to think ahead.
Okay, so let's say you've got your structure sorted and you figured out if you even need outside funding. What's next? Like, how does this whole funding thing actually play out over time?
That's where understanding the funding timeline is so important. It's not like you just poof, you're at the top of the mountain. You got to start at base camp and climb your way up.
I like that analogy. So what are the different, stages along this climb?
Okay, so you've got your discovery phase, proof of concept, product design, product development, then you get into manufacturing or delivery, and finally expansion and mezzanine financing.
Wow. Okay, there's a lot there. So each stage has, its own unique, I guessing, challenges, but also its own opportunities when it comes to funding.
Right. Early on, like in those discovery and proof of concept phases, you might be relying more on your own savings, friends and family, maybe angel investors, people who really believe in you and the vision.
They're taking a chance on you, basically, before you've got anything really concrete.
Exactly. But then as you move on, you're building the product, maybe you're starting to generate some revenue. You've got to look at things like venture capital or even bank loans.
Right. Which brings up, I guess, another big decision entrepreneurs face, debt versus equity financing.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It's like, I don't know, you're choosing to borrow a car versus actually, sharing ownership of the car.
I love that analogy. It's perfect because with debt financing, that's through banks or NBFCs. They're giving you the capital, you pay it back with interest, and that's good for, short-term stuff or if you really want to keep control of your company. But with equity financing, that's where you're giving up a piece of ownership.
Right, in exchange for the money, basically.
Exactly. But you also get their expertise, their network, their mentorship. That can be super valuable.
So it's a trade-off, basically. You get more control with debt, but maybe faster growth and support with equity.
Right. And the best choice. It all depends on you, your risk tolerance, what your long-term vision is, and, how comfortable you are sharing ownership.
Now let's get to the part I know everyone wants to hear about. What do investors actually want? It can't just be the coolest product or the most, groundbreaking technology, right?
No, no, definitely not. Our sources all point to 6 things investors are looking at.
Okay, lay it on me.
All right, so a great business model, that's key. A robust economic strategy, obviously. But then they also want a clear business plan so they can actually see how this is all going to work.
Makes sense.
And they want a strong management team because they're investing in people just as much as the idea.
Right, right.
And then this one is important. Proprietary technology that gives you an edge, sets you apart. And finally, a growing market.
Okay, so it's not enough to just have a brilliant idea. You need to prove you can actually turn that idea into a business.
Exactly. Think of it like this. Investors, they're looking for a well-rounded athlete, not just someone who can run fast. They want to see strength, agility, strategy, the whole package.
I'm getting the picture. So all these elements, they have to work together.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't have a great product without a plan to market, right? And even the best team in the world won't get very far without a solid business model.
You got it. Investors want to see that you've thought about everything from developing the product to analyzing the market, managing your finances, building your team, everything.
Okay, so you've got all this figured out. How do you actually present it to investors in a ways that gets them excited and makes them want to jump on board.
That's where the pitch deck comes in. It's your story, your big sales pitch. This is your chance to really wow them.
Now, our sources actually outline 11 essential slides every pitch deck should have.
Yeah, starting with that cover slide, that's your first impression, right?
Right.
It has to be powerful, draw them in, make them want to hear more. So you introduce the company, your mission, all that good stuff.
Okay.
Then you dive into the market need. What problem are you solving? Why are current solutions not good enough?
You're explaining the why behind your whole company.
Exactly. And you need to prove there's a big enough market for your solution, not just a tiny little niche.
Yeah, you got to show them there's money to be made, right?
Of course, investors want to see a return on their investment. Then, this is the fun part. You get to unveil your solution. Talk about the product, the service, how it's unique, what value it brings.
This is where you let your innovation shine.
Exactly. Show them how your solution tackles the problem head on. And remember, focus on the benefits, not just the features. What does this actually do for the customer?
Right. Paint that picture of a better future with your product at the center of it.
Exactly. Now, you can't forget about the competition. Who else is out there? What are they doing well? What are their weaknesses? And most importantly, how are you going to stand out?
It's like a game of chess. You got to plan your moves strategically.
Absolutely. Next up, your marketing and sales strategy. How are you going to reach your customers? What channels will you use? What makes your approach unique?
Investors want to see a plan for actually turning those ideas into revenue.
You bet. Then you got to talk about your business strategy for growth. What are your goals for the next few years? How will you achieve them? What are the key milestones you're aiming for?
So you're proving you're not just thinking about the short term, you've got a long-term vision.
Exactly. Now, this is the part everyone loves, the financial projections. The numbers.
It's getting real now. Revenue projections, gross profit, expenses, cash flow, all of it.
And be transparent here. Don't try to hide any potential problems or ups and downs. Honesty goes a long way.
Yeah, it builds trust.
Absolutely. Okay, now you're ready to talk about the funding request. How much money do you need, and how are you going to use it? Be specific.
They want to know their money is being used wisely.
Right. And don't forget to introduce your team. The people behind the vision are just as important as the idea itself. Investors bet on people.
Absolutely. So you're showcasing their experience, their passion, their expertise.
Right. Finally, you wrap it up by outlining your milestones and exit strategy. What does the future hold? How will investors get a return?
So it's about showing them you have a plan for their investment.
Exactly. You're thinking about their success as well as your own.
This has been incredibly insightful. I mean, it's clear there's a lot more to crafting a winning pitch deck than I realized. It's like an art form.
Yeah, it really is. But there's actually even more to the story than just the slides themselves. It's about building genuine relationships with investors. And that's what we'll dive into when we come back.
Welcome back, everyone. So just before the break, we were talking about how important the pitch deck is.
It is. It's like your company's resume,
Yeah, but we also kind of hinted that there's more to it than just having those perfect slides, right?
Oh, absolutely. A pitch deck will only get you so far. It's the relationships you build with investors that really matter. That's where the magic happens.
Okay, so it's about building trust, finding those shared values, making them feel like they're not just giving you money, but actually becoming a partner in your journey. How do you even start with that? Where do you find these investors?
Well, networking is key. You got to get out there, immerse yourself in the startup world, go to events, join online communities, connect with mentors, advisors. You never know who you're going to meet.
Right, like it's not just about what you know, it's who you know. But I guess it's not enough to just collect a bunch of business cards at some event. You have to actually cultivate those relationships.
Exactly. It takes time, it takes effort. You got to stay in touch, share interesting insights, offer your help, even before you need anything from them.
So don't be that person who only reaches out when they need money.
No. Engage with them. Comment on their posts, offer your perspective on things, show genuine interest in what they're doing.
So they see that you're not just there for a handout.
Right. You want to be a partner, someone who gets their vision, who's excited to be part of their success. Okay, so let's say you've made some good connections, you've been nurturing these relationships, now you're actually ready to start pitching. What are some tips for, making a good impression, winning them over?
Yeah, how do you stand out?
Well, first of all, preparation is key. Know your pitch inside and out. And I don't just mean the words on the slides, but the story behind those words. You got to practice. Anticipate the questions they might ask, those tough questions.
Like you're studying for a big exam.
Exactly. You want to show them that you're passionate, but you also really know your stuff, the market, the competition, your financials. You got to have it all down. But it's not just about giving a perfect presentation. You need to listen to. Pay attention to their feedback. Answer their questions thoughtfully. Be open to suggestions.
So it's a conversation, a back and forth, not just you talking at them.
Exactly. Investors, they bring a lot of experience to the table, so listening to their input can be super valuable. And here's a tip. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know. It's much better to be honest and say they'll get back to them than to try and make something up.
Honesty is always the best policy, especially when you're talking about something as important as funding.
Absolutely. And speaking of honesty, you've got to be upfront about your financials, the good and the bad. Don't sugarcoat anything.
Investors appreciate that, right? Someone who's realistic, transparent.
Yeah, they don't want some fake rosy picture. They want the real deal. Oh, and another thing, be mindful of their time. Keep your pitch concise, to the point, no rambling.
Time is money, right? Especially for investors.
You got it. And last but not least, don't forget to follow up, send a thank you note, reiterate your main points, answer any questions they had.
Stay top in mind.
Exactly. It shows you're serious about building that relationship, not just getting their money.
This is all great advice. We've learned so much about building relationships with investors. I'm guessing there's even more to learn, though. Welcome back. So we've talked about everything from choosing the right company structure to building that amazing pitch deck and connecting with investors. But let's be real. This whole startup thing, it's not always easy, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. There are going to be bumps in the road, One thing that all our sources emphasize is that rejection. It's just part of the game.
Yeah, it's like you got to kiss a lot of frogs to find your prince, right?
Exactly. Not every investor is going to be a good fit. Maybe their investment strategy doesn't line up with what you're doing. Maybe they're just not that into your industry. It happens.
And it's hard not to take it personally, right? Especially when you've put so much into your company. But our sources, they're saying it's not always a reflection of you or your idea.
Right. It could just be bad timing, or maybe they've already invested in something similar. You just never know.
So how do you deal with those no's? How do you keep going when it feels like everyone's slamming the door in your face?
You got to be resilient. Every rejection is a chance to learn, refine your pitch, get better at explaining your vision, take their feedback, even if it's tough to hear, and use it to make yourself stronger.
So it's like a muscle. The more you work it, the stronger it gets. And maybe down the line, you'll even be thankful for those rejections because they led you to the right people.
Absolutely. The best entrepreneurs, they're not the ones who never get rejected. They're the ones who learn from it and keep pushing forward. And, this brings up something really important that I think our sources were all getting at. It's not just about raising money. It's about building a successful business that actually makes a difference in the world.
Right. It's about the bigger picture. Funding is just one piece of the puzzle.
Exactly. The real reward is seeing your idea come to life, creating something valuable, something that helps people. And sometimes that means bootstrapping, grinding it out, getting creative to fuel your growth without relying on investors.
Yeah, there's no one right way to do it. The key is to be flexible, adapt to the situation, and never lose sight of why you started this whole thing in the first place.
Absolutely. Stay true to yourself. Stay true to your mission.
Well, we hope this deep dive has given you some valuable insights into the wild world of startup funding. It's exciting, it's challenging, but ultimately, it can be incredibly rewarding.
It's a journey, so enjoy the ride, embrace the ups and downs, and never stop learning.
Thanks for joining us. CC.